Seattle House Mafia.
Hey, it's Phil from Seattle House Mafia, coming to you from Seattle House Mafia HQ. Just real quick backstory. I have with me, not mine, but a loaner Euphonia mixer, which is the newest Alpha Theta offering, formerly Pioneer. It is their new rotary offering in kind of that pro-level gear market. It is a buddy of mine, and I had very little knowledge of this mixer besides just hearing some rumors that it was available. He picked it up. He gave me a call, said, hey, you want to check this thing out, maybe do a review on it? I said, absolutely. So I picked it up last night and brought it home, essentially plugged it in. My whole approach was to take it like I were a DJ rolling into a venue, not really sure what mixer I was going to be playing on, showing up and having this here without knowing much about it, and really to see how hard it was to use, how intuitive it was, what the feel was, you know, where there were sort of gaps, the pros, the cons, just really coming into this mixer with fresh eyes. So after about an hour and a half mix, I'm returning the next day, and I just want to give you guys my first impression of this thing. So starting from, let's just start from build quality real quick. And I say build quality with an asterisk because I have some feedback on the build quality, but the lower 2/3, we'll talk about that first. What you have is, well, in general, this is a tank of a mixer. It's super heavy. It's got wood sides. It's got this great kind of textured metal that I really like. It just feels hardy. This lower 2/3 feels super hardy. And the other thing that's wild about this is I thought it was going to be really wide. It's actually just about the same width as my A9. I'll have to do a measurement to see how close they are, but I didn't really have to move my turntables when I dropped this into the space that the A9 was in. So it was surprising that it was as narrow as it was. I mean, it's not narrow, it's still a good size, but I thought for sure it was going to be much wider. And I actually thought it was going to be longer as well. My A9 is actually longer than this thing. So it's an interesting size for how much is packed into it. So starting with the knobs, the rotary knobs, these things are super chunky. They feel great. They have a little rubber coating. They're metal on top. Some people were complaining about the rose color. I actually think it looks pretty good. It's unique. And the rumor has it that there is a mechanism in here, and when you slowly turn it, there's more tension than if you turn it quickly. I didn't really notice when I was doing my set last night. I kind of found that out after the fact. But I do notice it here. It's nuanced, but you can definitely feel it. That's a pretty slick innovation by Pioneer. So I give them props for that. Moving up, really standard 3-band EQ. The knobs feel great. My one critique here, and this is probably personal, would be I'd like a little more tension actually in the EQ knobs. And I say that because there was a couple times, there's notches at 12 o'clock on all these, but there was a couple times where I shot past the notch on the bass, and I really don't ever need to go past 12 o'clock on the low end here in my studio. It's pretty beefy. I have 315s and 3 tops, so there's plenty, and it usually translates pretty well into recordings. So I would say just a little bit more tension here. There's cues. Those are super easy to find, super intuitive. If you go back and check my mix video, you can see like it was real easy to figure out which channel I was cueing, etc. The one surprise for me was these silver guys, and these are essentially a wet dry because, and I didn't know this because I didn't do any research, there's onboard effects in this mixer. So this is the only mixer that I know of, the only rotary mixer that I know of out of the box that has built-in effects. I say out of the box because there's a lot of rotary conversions out there with like DJM 900 Nexus 2s, and I'm sure people are going to do some rotary conversions on the V10s or maybe even the A9s. But out of the box, as a proper rotary, I don't think there's any other rotary with onboard effects. Maybe, but I don't think so. Let me know in the comments if there are. I just don't think there are. So I'll mention one other thing, well, 2 other things. Mic controls totally intuitive, worked great. I actually used the talk over last night when I was introing the mix. And then the one thing I just want to spend a minute on is the headphone controls. Typical Pioneer headphone controls, which I absolutely love. Pioneer does my favorite headphone controls, and primarily that's because of the mono split feature. I love that mono split for two reasons. One is I can play down here a full DJ set and get kind of that sound system effect in my headphones, left being the cue, right being what's happening in the master. And I can do that when people are sleeping, so that's great. I don't wake anybody up. The other use I find myself using the mono split is sometimes you'll get really loud monitors in a club and you might not be able to separate out the sounds. And so I will throw my headphones on, use the mono split, and actually do a mix in my headphones versus dealing with the monitors if they're really like blown out or blary. So I just love that feature. I would have been surprised if Pioneer didn't put it on here, but I'm glad they did. So the headphones are great. And then the one other thing I'll mention on the headphones, which is like a pet peeve of mine, is I love that they put it on the right. So on my V10, the headphone jack is probably right around where this screw is. And so this is probably a deficiency of mine being a vinyl DJ, but I only pitch with my right hand, and then I typically EQ with my left hand most of the time. Then I'll leave the pitch and come over and use both hands to EQ, but I'm always only pitching with the right hand. So the problem with the V10 is many times I'll have to tent my hand over the headphone jack so I have this huge mixer with all these functions and features, but I'm like this, and I'm all crammed up on this left side when I'm pitching the left turntable. So I love that. And you know, I don't know if they were thinking about that, but I love that they put the headphone jack actually over on the right, because you just don't have that same issue, right, that you would if you were doing this. So good job on that, Pioneer. Let's move up and let's actually start with the ISOs. So for folks not familiar with rotary mixers, ISOs essentially affect the master, the three frequencies coming out of the master, right? The low, mid, and high. A lot of rotary mixers have ISOs, so you can either do full cuts on the low, for instance, or you can actually boost the low, boost the mids, boost the treble. So you can get different effects by playing with the ISOs on what's coming out in the house. And what's cool is they actually added different options for boost level. I left it at +6. It seemed like that was the right one for me in the studio here, and that's how it came out in the recording pretty well. And actually, I just wanted to mention the master is the same like chunky, consistent knob as the other big knob. So I really dig these knobs. I've heard rumors that other rotary guys don't like them. They don't feel like a rotary. I don't know. I dig them. The other super cool thing, so besides the onboard effects, which I talked about a second ago, I've never seen this, but you can actually map an effect to one of the ISO frequencies. So it's pretty simple. But imagine everything's at 12 o'clock. You have this record fully in the mix, and then you hit delay, and you just hit this send here, and you can just delay the mid. Or you move it over to shimmer, and you just hit a little bit, and you can actually shimmer. And when you go, the further you go, the more effect comes in. So I can recreate that on my V10. But it's a totally different workflow and not nearly as intuitive. This is such a cool, I think probably my favorite feature on the mixer, such a cool intuitive workflow to be able to affect a frequency with a simple push button and then actually control it. So I don't know. I don't mean to go on and on about it, but I really love that. Screens, just kind of standard, you know, function, utility, settings, things like that. There's a couple different options for the screen. I don't want to get into that. For me, it didn't do much, but you know, it's really pretty. They did a nice job on the display. I do want to talk about some cons though, because I only have a few, but they're a big deal to me. The first con is this black piano plastic garbage that that Alpha Theta decided to use. I hate this stuff. And in fact, Pioneer, this is for you. I do not know a DJ who actually likes this. The only time this looks good is probably when you're taking your press pictures because there's nice contrast, or when a new consumer is pulling it out of the box for the very first time. After that, any of the Pioneer gear that has this black piano plastic, it never looks good again. It either has fingerprints all over it or scratches or both. And I know from experience because I instantly scratched my CDJ 3000s, wiping it off with a brand new clean terry cloth towel when I got my first fingerprints on it. So this material is like the bane of my existence, and almost enough in and of itself to never consider this mixer. For me personally, right? But I don't want to dissuade anybody else, but truly, like, I cannot stand this material, nor do I know any DJs that enjoy that. So Pioneer, please stop using that. The other thing, and I think this is going to be the actual Achilles heel of the mixer, is the effects selector knob or switch, whatever you want to call it. It's pretty wiggly. I mean, this is a new mixer. It wiggles. It feels janky. I promise you, if this is a club install with a rotation of heavy-handed DJs coming in, this thing is going to break, and these Euphonias are going to end up in shops getting this replaced. So I would really hope to see Pioneer maybe improve this on the next version, do something a little bit more robust. This does not map to the build quality of the rest of the mixer. I think actually those two things, the black piano plastic and this janky little switch, it doesn't feel like it fits with the rest of this. It feels like it was kind of mishmashed together at the last moment. So I don't really know what the design decision was there, but I don't know. It's a problem. And like I said, I think the piano black alone would probably be enough for me to not consider buying this mixer. All that said, I did have a great time. It was intuitive. The sound is beefy. I think the sound might be a little bit beefier on the low and low mid than my V10, but I won't know that until I actually set them side by side and do a little bit of a shootout, which I plan to do in another video. But it sounds great. And I think that's the Nev transformers that are in here. Once you start pushing this thing a little bit, you're gonna like how it sounds. And so who is this for? Well, I own a V10, I own an A9. I don't think this mixer is for me. I actually have an Eckler Warm 2, which is a rotary. I don't think this mixer is for me. I can do more on my V10 than I can on this, and the A9 is just kind of club standard. But I think there is a market for this mixer for the folks that maybe are either old rotary guys who want new tech, or they're people who are used to the Pioneer tech but want to get into the rotary side of things, because they did a really nice job of bringing together that rotary feel with their newest Pioneer innovations. So I do think there's a market for this thing. The other piece where I've seen people kind of turn their nose up at this mixer was the price point. So it's about $4,000 US, give or take. If you do start looking into boutique rotaries and other rotary offerings out there right now, and those don't have onboard effects. They don't have the same technology. You're going to end up spending a very similar amount. And then you start adding effects on top of that. You could very easily go above and beyond what this mixer would cost to get the same functionality. So I would recommend that if price point is an issue for you, really relook at that and start doing the math around what a boutique rotary would cost plus whatever effects you needed. Because I think you're going to end up in a price point that's even higher than this one. But yeah, that's just some of the but everybody bitches about price when it comes to Pioneer gear. And I know, everybody says Pioneer's overpriced. I don't know if that's the case. And I think there is a justification to pay what you would pay for this mixer. But with that, that's just my initial review. Like I said, I want to do another video with some sound comparison and really get into the nitty gritty of if this thing sounds different than the A9 or the V10. And I'm just going to leave it at that for now. So thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. I'd love to hear from you in the comments, whether you own a rotary or if you played on the Euphonia, or what your feedback is on the Euphonia, or if you have questions, because I have access to one now. So I'm happy to answer questions in the comments. So go ahead and leave that, and I'll see you next time. Take care.